In the world of luxury watches, there's one thing you'll interact with on every single watch you ever own, and that is the crown. The crown on a watch can vary in function, style, and usefulness, especially when it comes to automatic watches. But here's the thing, you've got to know what type of crown your watch has, because your wearing experience will be impacted by the type of crown and by what it does. So in this video, we're going to cover how the crown actually works, and then we'll make the distinction between different types of crowns, and of course, show you some beautiful examples along the way. My name is James, and I am a watch collector, enthusiast, and advisor. And the goal of my channel is to help you know and love your watches. So if you enjoy this type of content, do like the video and subscribe to the channel as I post new videos every week. And with that, let's turn to the topic of crowns. So first, we've got to talk about what a crown actually does. This is my Royter DR-02, and I'm going to start with this to help us demonstrate the functions of the crown. Again, just about every watch you'll see has one, and in simple terms, the crown itself is mounted on a stem, right here. The stem passes through the case and actually interacts with the movement. So inside the watch, the stem connects to a part of the winding system called the keyless works. And you can see that it's actually right under here. Now, this keyless works has a little sliding pinion, and that determines where the motion of rotating the crown is actually applied. That sliding pinion is kind of like the controller of the movement, if you will. Something called the yoke is what physically moves that sliding pinion into the various positions as you pull the crown in and out. And the yoke is also responsible for that crunchy feeling you get when you wind the watch. Now on most watches, it's that very first position where the crown is unlocked but not pulled out that allows you to wind the mainspring of the watch by turning the crown. So you can hear it as I wind it, and as I flip it over, you can actually see the barrel winding underneath. There's a winding pinion in the keyless works, and that's what actually connects with the mainspring barrel to wind it. Now, as you change the position of the crown from being furthest in to a secondary position, you generally will access different functions of the watch, such as a day or date setting mode. And there's a setting lever that's responsible for this. So if I pull the crown from the first position out to the second position, now I can set both my date, and in this case with the ETA 7750, turning it in the reverse direction will set the day. And then in most cases, pulling the crown to its furthest position engages the setting wheel, which controls the hands of the watch. So this furthest lateral position of the crown also often does what we call hacking the seconds by activating a brake lever that stops the balance wheel from moving. So I'm going to flip the watch over. As I pull the crown out to its furthest position, you can see right now the balance is still moving here. As I pull it out, you see that brake lever engaged and it stops the balance wheel. And then when you push the crown back in out of that position, the brake is disengaged and the balance wheel starts again. All these parts together basically act as a transmission system for the watch. Now, the most important thing that you always want to do is to make sure that once you've done your winding or setting, that you return your crown to its home position. You never want to wear your watch with the crown pulled out because that stem in there on the crown is delicate. And all it takes is a bump in the wrong direction and you are going to be needing an expensive service for your watch, which you probably don't want. So now you know the basics of how the winding system actually works. So to recap, the crown connects to the stem, connects to the sliding pinion, which is moved by the yoke, and then the sliding pinion engages the various parts of the watch, whether the winding pinion to put torque on the mainspring, or the setting wheel to change a calendar function, or the setting wheel to change the hours and the minutes. Now let's talk about two primary types of crowns. There are push-down crowns, and then there are screw-down crowns. When it comes to a push-down crown, there are no threads here. Okay, the crown presses into a tube inside the case, and that creates a secure seal simply with gaskets or O-rings. You've probably seen these if you've ever taken something apart before. The gaskets themselves get compressed slightly when the crown is pushed down into its home position, and that does the job of keeping moisture out of the watch. In general, push-down crowns can be found on many dress watches for sure, and even on a lot of common sports watches such as my Dan Royter here. Although beautiful, it's also rugged with 50 meters of water resistance, and it works great as an all-arounder for everyday use. Now, the benefit of a push-down crown is they're generally easier and more convenient to wind, as you don't have to screw them out first, as you'll see with the other style. You simply pick up the watch and you can begin winding. And that's because the yoke holds the sliding pinion in that winding position to apply that torque to your mainspring. However, you're very reliant on gasket integrity here. And because there's nothing holding the crown down, it is possible to accidentally move or pull the crown. You just want to be mindful of that while wearing a watch with a push-down crown. Now, the other type of crown we need to talk about is the screw-down crown. For this, we're going to look at my Grand Seiko SLGA 017 Japan Limited Edition Skyflake dial. Now, with a screw-down crown, you've got a big advantage here. These crowns use threading and a tube system that physically screws into the case and compresses the gaskets under a lot of tension. Now, the original brand to pioneer this method of water resistance was, of course, Rolex with its Oyster case, which originally debuted in 1926. And the whole goal of this was to make a luxury watch with the ability to withstand significant water exposure, which they subsequently did. Now, my Grand Seiko here is resistant to 100 meters of water, which is pretty standard for their Evolution 9 case designs. As with many dive watches or other more aquatic sports watches, having a screw-down crown ensures that you can't really leave it open by accident. So with this one, when you unscrew the crown, it kind of pops into its normal winding position. So we'll unscrew it here, and you can see it just popped out just a little bit. From here, it's going to function the exact same way our push-down crown system works. Same stem, same keyless works, and same positions controlling the winding, controlling the date as I pull it into the second position, and the time. Now, although the movement here is dramatically different than the ETA 7750 in my Dan Royter, the 5-day spring drive powered by Grand Seiko and their 9R82 caliber also has the stop seconds function. So if I flip the watch over here and then pull the crown out to its extremity, you can see the governing wheel, which moves in one direction with Grand Seiko's spring drive movements, also stops. And when I push the crown back in, you can see the governing wheel restart. Now, this isn't everything there is to see with crowns. There are a whole lot of different variations out there. As you get more water resistance, you run into things like Rolex twin lock and trip lock systems. And with extreme examples, you may even have a threaded collar, like on this Omega Ploprof, which is rated to 1200 meters. There's not necessarily a better or worse when it comes to crowns. It's just a matter of having the right tool for the job. And that's where you come in as the collector to decide which watch is best for which occasion. The crowns generally will have some sort of a knurling on them to make it easy to grip, as you can see here with the Omega. So I want to say thank you for stopping by the video, and if you've enjoyed this conversation about watch movements, definitely check out my latest podcast where I look at 5 of the best finished watch movements out there on the market today. You'll see some extraordinary watches where the crown is probably the last thing that you'll want to look at. And let me know down below, do you have a preference on your crowns? Which type do you wear more and when? Leave me a comment down below, and I will see you all next time. Bye-bye.